Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on the evening of September 28th because the Toronto Blue Jays are AL East champions. First time in a decade. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And Jori, how are you feeling about these Blue Jays now?
These division-winning Toronto Blue Jays, that's right. For the first time since 2015, just as you outlined, your Toronto Blue Jays are division champions of the American League East. How am I feeling? Well, normally I wouldn't pull these out. You try to keep it professional, try to keep it impartial. We're rocking the dock today. It's a good day to be a Blue Jays fan. I'll say that.
For those listening on the audio portion of the podcast, Jory just stood up and flashed a Roy Halladay jersey. So the vibes are high. Vibes are high. I guess we can say that. The Blue Jays just like completely take the Rays out behind the shed, 13-4. Alejandro Kirk, two homers. George Springer homers. Addison Barger homers. The bullpen comes in. Mason Fluharty, have yourself another moment. And they hold off the Yankees, who ended the season on an 8-game win streak, really pushing things right to the end. Obviously, game 162, all the marbles were on the line, but the Blue Jays, man, I mean, we last time we talked, they were struggling. Things were kind of going in the wrong direction, and it seemed like the Yankees kind of had all the momentum and the Blue Jays had none of it. And that Dalton Varsho grand slam really kind of flipped the switch for the Blue Jays here over these last couple days, and they sweep the Rays for the first time since 2015 as well to get it done, and they are headed to the ALDS.
Jays needed every last inch, every last win of this last weekend, and wouldn't you know it, they did exactly that, and that's all you can ask for. The stakes were high. These were basically three playoff games, especially, yesterday and today. The Yankees were out early ahead. So there was a very clear sense of urgency for the Jays throughout these last two games. So to ultimately be able to walk out of here with the division title is just so deeply satisfying.
Yeah, it's funny, like just kind of the way that it played out. Obviously, Major League Baseball does the thing on the last day where they start all the games at the same time so that you can't have any shenanigans with your pitching or whatever. So that sets up the Blue Jays in a situation where they're going to go Kevin Gausman with the, in basically in a way, it was like a one-game wild card against the Rays for them. If they win, you get to go straight to the ALDS. You get to set your staff. You get to wait for the Yankees and Red Sox to beat up on each other a little bit. And, if things didn't go well, then basically you were not going to have Kevin Gausman for the wild card series. I'm sure he would have pitched, but certainly in a limited capacity. So there was a lot riding on this win today. And I think, the Rays score in the first inning, there's kind of the energy air gets taken out of the building a little bit. And then
I mean, I
Alejandro
was sending
Kirk.
messages and I was like, the vibes are off. This isn't good after the first inning. And then I was like, the Jays scored, they tied it, we're back. And you were like, yeah, well, maybe don't check the Yankees score.
Well, I sent that after the Kirk Grand Slam, like just because, like, or maybe it was before the Kirk
No, it
Grand
was
Slam.
before the Grand Slam
Yeah.
because the Grand Slam happens. And I mean, I don't know, what was your reaction to that? Because for me, there was an immediate, oh my God, they're going to do this.
So this is an aside about my stream right now, which has been way, 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 way behind everybody else. So I'm getting all the tweets, all the notifications way before seeing it on my screen. So of course I knew it was coming when he does hit the Grand Slam. But obviously it happens and you're kind of like, oh my God, like that is a certified trademark moment for Alejandro Kirk. Like
For
that's
the
the reason.
franchise.
Yeah, that's the reason why you give him the extension. That's the reason why, it's the reason why you watch and play baseball is for moments like that, right? And for him to do that, and obviously, I think the coolest part about it was him showing the emotion around second base because this is a guy that we very rarely see any emotion from, and for him to be that hyped up about it told you just how big of a moment it was. And I mean, huge. Obviously, they end up winning the game 13-4, but things kind of get a little bit tighter, and then he hits another one, and that one was kind of the one that settled things and kind of put it to bed. But I think you tweeted it, but I mean, it was the Alejandro Kirk game, and for him to do that in a moment when they needed it was just incredible.
Yeah, I was thinking this. It was like everybody was screaming for Vladdy to come and be the superhero. Ohtani was busy hitting bombs, and Judge was busy hitting bombs, and Raleigh was busy hitting bombs, and everyone's screaming, wouldn't it be nice if your superstars showed up for the big games? Wouldn't you know it? You did have a superstar show up for your big game. It was, you know, based on the fact that Cal Raleigh's probably the MVP, the second best catcher in the American League. But your superstar showed up when you needed him to, and that to me, your core guys are ultimately the reason that you're in the postseason here, or rather in the division series.
Yeah, Kirk, I mean, 3 for 5, 2 homers, a double, 6 RBI. Like, put the team on your back. Like, that's kind of what he did tonight. And for him, he'd been struggling. He'd been kind of, right at the core of these Blue Jays offensive struggles recently. So for him to, he hit the home run yesterday too. So for him to kind of get out of that funk a little bit with this. And I think it's funny because it essentially, as we mentioned, is like a postseason game, and the Blue Jays kind of played it like a postseason game, right? Like they hit the most homers, so they obviously come out on top. And there wasn't any waiting around for Gosman to kind of figure out his struggles with the bases loaded. They turned to Mason Fluharty, and I mean, putting some trust in your guys there. What, another big moment for him, especially, we've seen him kind of do that a couple times this year but
I want to get into flu a little bit here, actually, because you have been beating the flu hardy drum for upwards of 2 years now, probably. Like this is, I'm pretty sure you were talking about him at least this offseason and probably last year too. This is just an incredible development story. And even outside of that is just an incredible story of a guy who came up, was so electric, totally hit some speed bumps and comes right back down to earth, goes down to AAA, comes back, and has been, dare I say, the best reliever in the Blue Jays bullpen.
I mean, the thing with him is like, the end of year numbers aren't exactly pretty. Like they're not anything you're gonna be writing home about, right? It's whatever. It was a 4.5 ERA or around there. And but I think when you look at like kind of the outsized impact that he had on the season, right? Early on where he was kind of a candidate to make the bullpen, and they go with the Jacob Barnes, they go with the Richard Lovelady over him for him to kind of bounce back. And once he did get that call to the majors, and as you mentioned, like just be an absolutely electric part of this bullpen to start, and then to kind of get sent down once the struggles kind of pop back up. But ever since he's returned again, he's been incredible. And when you think of this moment, when you think of the Shohei strikeout and the Mookie ground ball in that Dodgers game, like he's pitched in some of the biggest moments for this team. And with Brendan Little's struggles of late, his emergence has been huge. And it's a guy that, if we're building out a 26-man postseason roster, I don't see how you can't have him on it at this point.
This guy was incredible. I mean, doesn't have a huge sample size and high leverage, only 4 innings, 22 batters faced. But I mean, I look at the medium leverage even, and batters have a .073 batting average against him in medium leverage. He's probably not getting, by Fangraphs high leverage. Fangraphs high leverage is really high. It's like two or more. He's not getting too many of those spots. But even, in the medium leverage, the fact that he's been a guy that's come in for them in clutch spots, maybe not the most clutch spots, but clutch spots and been dynamite to me is really telling.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, I think, about kind of these last 4 days for the Blue Jays is just how much of like this 4 game stretch kind of embodied their entire season, right? Obviously, Vladdy, huge part of their year, their best hitter, kind of the guy that you're going to need in the postseason. But over these past 4 days, like there's been so many different guys that have stepped up and had big moments, right? Whether it's Kirk, Fluharty, Eric Lauer was really great the other day out of the pen. Louis Varland has been great. I think Nathan Lucas yesterday, of course, has the big swing as well. And you just kind of think up and down the lineup, they all contributed to these 4 games. They had pretty much everybody in there producing at some point. Trey Savage was great yesterday. You think of even back to kind of that last Red Sox game, Varsho, Springer kind of had their big swings. Like it's just been so impressive to me how this team has been able to kind of manage to continue producing 1 through 26 or 1 through 28 right now, and being able to find a way to win when, even a guy like Vladdy isn't at his peak powers and, obviously seems to be kind of battling something right now. I think it's just been the story of the season to me is just how this team is able to attack you 1 through 9 and win games with anybody stepping up.
Not to mention their best run producer, if you want to use that term. Bo Bichette is
Yeah.
out for, the basically last month of the season. Also, by the way, he had some comments post game that to me sounded a lot like he will not be back for the division series. I don't know if we want to get into that yet. We'll maybe get into that in a little bit, but certainly didn't have the most inspiring of comments during his post game chat with Hazel May. But just the way that the Jays have just constantly been able to work around injuries, work through their depth, slot guys in that had no business being as effective as they ultimately were. Almost Razian, Guardiansian.
Yeah.
It was really incredible.
I think we can kind of move on to looking forward now a little bit. I think obviously great season. You kind of not quite, I don't want to say limp into the playoffs into the 1 seed, but there has been some concerning trends over the last week or so. And I think that the offense has kind of snapped that over the last couple days and the bullpen has been, fantastic. I think the Hoffman stuff, the eye test there certainly hasn't quite kind of matched the results, but the rest of the bullpen, Louis Varland has been great. Like we talked about Fluharty, Eric Lauer. I mean, how appropriate for him to kind of close out the AL East clincher. But when you kind of look at the rotation, I mean, Gosman today, not his best. He wasn't his best against the Red Sox his last time out either. Obviously, the Scherzer stuff is concerning. You Savage has pitched his way into an ALDS rotation spot, I would probably say, especially if you're confident with him and where his workload is at. You'll get Bassett back, so it's going to be a really interesting conversation. But I kind of want to dig in on Gosman because, that's your game 1 starter. And how are you kind of feeling around what happened today and what happened his last time out?
I think to me, there's definitely concern. The thing that I think was really frightening was the inability to miss bats. Guys were just spitting on his splitter, you know, all afternoon. And I don't know if that's a case of fatigue. I don't know if that's just poor luck. I don't know if that's a raised preparation thing. But that's ultimately the frightening part of any Gosman start, right? Is when teams can pick up on him and seem to know what's coming. You look back to him against the Twins and the Yankees in the past have historically seen him very well. Those are the starts that you're maybe a little bit more concerned about. And to me, the concern level is obviously higher than it was when he had that three-start stretch where he shut down basically three superstar teams. Now, mind you, you'll have to remind me again, but were the Yankees one of those teams? Because it was the Brewers and the Astros, and I think one
It
of them
was
was
the
the
Yankees, yeah.
Yankees. So at that, he's done it against them, and there's reason to believe he's capable of shutting down the New York Yankees. It's just a matter of whether or not, obviously, that's who he's going to face versus maybe the Red Sox, who he did not have quite such a strong start out against. At the end of the day, you trust him based on his body of work. And the body of work is so strong that I think, regardless of these last two starts, you have faith that he is capable of being an effective game 1 or game 2 playoff starter.
There's a week to decide this, but would he kind of still be the guy for you in game 1?
I think so. I mean, I can see the reason to go Bieber. I mean, if you really want to get crazy with it, I can see the reason to go you Savage. Arguably, he's been their best guy over the last 2 or 3 weeks, right? I think that at the end of the day, they have this wealth of options, and they're going to kind of have to see exactly who they feel matches up best with whoever they're facing because it's going to be a 5 game series. You're not going to get 4 or 5 guys deep necessarily. So you're gonna have to pick ultimately the guys that you really trust the most. You're not gonna be seeing a Max Scherzer likely. Are you gonna see a Chris Bassett? We'll see. Are you gonna see a Jose Barrios? Unlikely. There's gonna be a lot of questions to be answered, and you're gonna have to make some educated guesses at times here in terms of the information that you have and who best suits that role. And I think to me, right now, as things stand, you're still okay with Gosman, but that's the reason you have a guy like a Shane Bieber, is that you have the option to go to him and make that decision if need be.
Yeah, I think, we talked a little bit about kind of how you would want to line up. And I think, the matchup will certainly play into it. Obviously, the Yankees and Red Sox are certainly both two intimidating offenses. And I think obviously the Yankees maybe a little bit more so than the Red Sox. But one thing that I am pretty interested about, I mean, is just kind of how you would line up um a Savage start. Like I think, Mitch Bannon of The Athletic, friend of the show, said on a Rates and Barrels podcast last week that he had heard earlier in the summer that Savage's inning cap was at 140. And, obviously unclear whether that's changed or not, but he's sitting, around 110 at this point. So 30 innings get you through a postseason. I think you feel pretty comfortable with him kind of starting still at this point. And I think, when you look at it, that like that's a guy that I would rather pitch at home than on the road. And same goes for Bassett, given the way that his splits have kind of gone this year, although that's kind of like competition based. So, it'll be interesting to see. I think obviously one of Gosman or Bieber, game one and two. If you lose game one, then you kind of got to go with the other game two. But I think if you win that game one, you can maybe try and slide one of them to the game three.
I guess the only thing I would worry about is trying to get cute with it. And I also think something that's going to be worth acknowledging is if Gosman gets drilled, there's a decent chance because there are some similarities.
Yeah.
Savage
I
could be
actually
prone to that.
I actually was gonna say that the Rays thing, right? Like they had kind of the Kevin Gausman education the night before with you Savage. Obviously, they didn't hit you Savage very well yesterday, but
They're
obviously
different in a
it's
lot of ways, right?
but
The
the
release
approach is
stuff
probably pretty similar. So
exactly is you look for stuff to hit that's up in the zone, and if it's down in the zone, generally it's going to fall off a cliff, right?
yeah, we'll learn a lot about the kind of upcoming rotation and how it's going to unfold. I think it'll be fun. I would imagine that the Blue Jays are going to kind of do this open scrimmage type thing that we're seeing the Phillies and the Mariners sell tickets for. I would imagine they kind of set that up in the next couple days where they go scrim or live at bats or whatever with a crowd to kind of get that intense feel at the dome, which will be exciting for fans to kind of get out and see that. I'm sure that'll be a really cool atmosphere. But there's obviously going to be so much coming in the lead up to that, and obviously Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be the wild card series where the Yankees and Red Sox are going to play in New York at Yankee Stadium to for the right to kind of come play the Blue Jays, which is kind of a crazy statement if you think back to the beginning of the season when we're making our predictions as to who would kind of slot in where. Um, if you were to call your shot, I mean, it's the Red Sox, right? You would rather see the Red Sox?
Well, that's what I was about to ask you, and I do think it's probably the Red Sox. I don't think there's anyone in the American League that is as frightening as the New York Yankees. And I've been saying this the whole time, even when the Tigers were atop the American League. The Yankees to me, they're so built for the postseason in terms of just having two guys that can go out and beat you in terms of obviously Freed and Rodon. And the power is so prolific as well versus, a Blue Jays team that, while able to tap into the power, is more concerned with making your life difficult by putting absolutely everything in play and being a really tough out, obviously, at the dish. Now, for you, I mean, like we said, the preference is Red Sox. So I think the more compelling question is if you were to go 50-50 in terms of who you'd rather see, how do you weight it in terms of who you'd prefer, kind of by how much, Are we talking, is it like 60-40? Is it 70-30? Is it 80-20? How much are we talking?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's beware of what you ask for, right? Like, especially where, we just saw this Red Sox team come into Rogers Center with their three best guys on the mound and win the series. Sure, they were more desperate than the Blue Jays, but I mean, the Blue Jays were still playing for a division title and a bye at that point, right? So, I think when you kind of line up the Red Sox, um, the crochet thing is certainly scary, and I think that is kind of the trump card that they're going to have in this Yankee series. If they can get the crochet win in game one, that you feel pretty good going forward after that, Giolito and Bayo. But Conley early has also been really good for them as a rookie, so there's kind of that in the mix too. The Roman Anthony thing kind of lingers, and it's kind of on the periphery of the conversation, but I would imagine he's not back until an ALCS at earliest. So I think the Yankees, just kind of the way that they've rounded into form, they found, a little bit more stability defensively with Caballero playing short more frequently, with Ryan McMahon playing third base, moving Jazz to second. So, they found that stability. Their bullpen has kind of rounded into form as well, with Williams kind of figuring it out. Getting Bednar as the closer has been big for them. And then, you mentioned Fried, Rodon, and then the pitchers behind them are no slouches either, right? Schlittler, Warren, Heel. They're not Fried or Rodon, but they're certainly capable arms of getting you out. So I think, yeah, the Yankees are the team that you would want to see less of the two. And, I'd probably almost put it at like a 70-30, just based on how home runs play in October and just how proficient the Yankees are at hitting the ball over the fence. But, the Red Sox are surely no easy task either.
Now, here's the other question. Let's say that series goes 2 games. Let's say that the Red Sox, or let's say that the Yankees win in two. They come to Toronto. You're potentially missing seeing a guy like a Crochet, like a Fried, like a Rodon. You're potentially missing seeing one of them twice, potentially, which is also a pretty significant factor in this whole discussion.
Yeah, I guess it would kind of, I would imagine that if say that this scenario plays out, that you would see the game one starter in game two on Sunday. So that would kind of be normal rest for them. And then I'm sure that they would probably be willing to bring him back for a do or die game five. But it'll be it's going to be interesting to see how they all laid out, right? And I think that's a thing for the Jays too, right? Is where if you have, say, a Gosman or Bieber go game three rather than game two, that probably takes them out of a game five scenario. So that's kind of in the mix too.
Yeah. Now, I mean, at the same time, if you get to a game five, you cross that bridge when you get there. But in theory, again, the pitching should be strong enough that they should be able to compete. But I do think it's just going to be really fascinating to keep an eye on that series for obvious reasons. That should be one of the more exciting wildcard series. This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode. Let's get into the wildcard series. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it does feel like if we're on the topic, it may make
Yeah.
some sense to maybe make the rounds and talk a little bit about what else is going to happen over the next couple days.
I mean, we know the full picture. Obviously, the Mariners kind of go on their run to steal the AL West from the Astros, who, are the unfortunate team that faded the most. I guess obviously the Tigers lost a 15 and a half game lead to the Guardians, but some fun wild card matchups. I think the Cubs Padres one is really intriguing. Obviously the Yankees and Red Sox will kind of be the best of the bunch. Dodgers, Reds. I mean, one team's an 83 win team that lost to get into the postseason, and one is the reigning champion World Series winners with the Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani and Blake Snell and Yoshinobu. Like all these guys, like, so the Reds are probably going to win that series, right? Like, so that's just kind of the way that it all sets up. And then Guardians Tigers. I mean, love a good divisional matchup for these, and that one will be intriguing. I think the Guardians obviously kind of have had the Tigers number recently, and but Derek Skubal's pitching game one, and not many guys that you'd rather have pitch game one than him.
So who do you like for that one? Let's start in the Central because that one to me is it, it's simultaneously the most and the least fascinating
Well,
because
there's a reason why
obviously,
they got the 1 p.m. time slot.
well, that's the one thing. But in terms of all of the series, it might be the closest between any of them. Maybe the Padres Cubs, although I'm probably more of a Cubs believer than I am a Padres reliever, a believer, excuse me, I think. But to me, I think on a pure likelihood to go 3 games, I don't think any are as likely as this one.
Yeah, and I mean they just played last October, right? In the ALDS, they went five and had kind of the big Lane Thomas swing off of Tarek Skubal to kind of win that series. But yeah, honestly, not necessarily hot take, but to me, whoever wins game one is going to win that series. If the Tigers win game one with Skubal, I think that they're able to kind of figure out one of the other games. And if the Guardians win a Skubal game, I think that's it for the Tigers.
Yeah, it's gonna be Scooble trying to kind of carry them on his back, I'd figure, right? It's gonna be so huge, so imperative. They're on the road too. So it's gonna be
Yeah.
really tough. Like
I
it's a
mean,
huge ask.
Tigers game two starter is Jack Flaherty, who, good pitcher, had some decent moments in October last year with the Dodgers, but it's still a guy who, he had a 4.6 ERA this year, has a little bit of a home run issue, and, I don't think he's pitching particularly well heading into October. So, not that the Guardians have a bunch of big names kind of lined up to go either, but they've kind of got like this Blue Jays thing going where they've got like this full attack coming at you. And, they've also got Jose Ramirez, who is probably the best non-Scooble player in the series.
I'd say so. Who goes for them? Like rotation is Bybee, Williams. I mean, the rest of Parker Messick pitched a lot at the end there.
I mean, they were
I
running a
mean,
six-man to end the year. So
yeah, I mean, I just pulled up their depth chart on MLB.com. And you got to figure it's probably Tanner Bybee going game one, but
I th
I mean, he's not really a number one guy. I don't even know if
I
he's
th
lined up to go one.
I think it's lined up for Gavin Williams to go game one.
And that's not exactly a screaming number one guy either, right?
Yeah, I think, it's so funny because they like their starting pitching was just so good to end the year. Right? When you look at like those six guys that all kind of pitched to end the year. I mean, it was Slade Ciccone, who had a sub 4 ERA in 30 innings and five starts. Joey Cantillo had a 1.55 ERA in his last five starts. Bybee had a 1.3, Messick had a 3.8, Gavin Williams had a 1.88 and was striking out 11.25 dudes per nine. And Logan Allen had a sub three. Like they were all rolling. So I think that they could probably go in any direction, but I would imagine that they go Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, and then probably Parker Messick, just
Oh,
kind of
he
the
was
best strikeout
probably,
guy.
that's what I figure. And also the lefty, right? Which presents
Yeah.
a different look, right?
Yeah, you keep Kerry Carpenter out of the lineup for the Tigers, and again, the Tigers lineup like just isn't like all that intimidating to me. Obviously, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green are in there, but I think when you kind of look at them and what they've done in the second half, like it's just not a group that's kind of strung it all together at the right time.
No, they've strung it together is understatement of the understatement of maybe the episode there.
Yeah.
15 and a half games. It's certainly not stringing it together.
Hey man, when I mean like let me like I'll just read you out. It says their go-to starting lineup against this is against righties, so this is kind of even, like the best group that they're running out, and it's Parker Meadows, Glaber Torres, Kerry Carpenter, Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, Wenzel Perez, Dylan Dingler, Zach McKinstry, Javi Baez. Like it's not a murderer's row
No,
that they're
there's some
running out
guys
there.
in there. You know, Riley Green has had his moments, although he sputtered immensely in the second half.
I'd be interested to see a graph that has like Riley Green's WRC plus on the season next to the Tigers playoff or AL Central odds on the season because I bet
I
you
think
they are pretty close to the same.
there's probably a pretty strong correlation between those two. So that's okay. So we've gone through the AL here a little bit,
So
although I
sorry.
mean,
One more Tigers thing.
all
Who do you
right.
think was their position player leader in F4 this year?
Oh God, I would hope it was Riley Green.
It was not.
Oh God, was it Javi Baez?
Not Javi Baez. Javi
Who
Baez.
was it?
Javi Baez ended with a 85 WRC plus on the year.
The All-Star season.
All-star over
Uh,
George Springer.
exactly. Yeah, George Springer, who, by the way, among all qualified hitters, I believe in the second half, an OPS over 1.1
Yeah.
led everybody.
He had the third highest WRC plus in baseball this year behind Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani.
That is a dude. Can you believe that sentence?
No. Anyways, the Tigers in position player leader in F4 was Dylan Dingler.
Oh, not a murderer's row. Not a murderer's row.
All right, let's
Uh,
talk about the NL a little bit. Cubs Padres, I think a little more intrigue there than in Dodgers Reds. Although, if you were to star power it, I mean Dodgers probably take the cake, but I mean Cubs interesting, you know, good year. Tucker's kind of been out, obviously PCA struggling in the second half. Cubs kind of not like the most dominant team in the second half, but they had a really good year. They finished with 92 wins. So, I mean, that's a really good team. And they've kind of just been able to figure it out all year, but they also lose Cade Horton for a while, which is a big blow.
that's a huge blow. Yeah, I mean, their rotation, I think, is the biggest question mark because on the hitting side, I mean, basically you run through the list. Everybody had, again, I've just pulled up baseball reference. Everybody had an OPS plus over 100, except for Matt Shaw with a 98. This is a team that can hit, and that hits a lot. Seiya Suzuki may have had one of the more underrated years
Yeah.
in baseball. He was really having a strong year, although I think he may have tapered off a tiny bit at the end, but, nevertheless, still 30 bombs is 30 bombs. I mean, on the pitching side, it's Matt Boyd, who I don't know how much you really want to put stock in a Matt Boyd.
He had a
And
nice year. He was an all-star. Like
you
it was a
know,
nice it was a
it
nice
was
season.
it was a nice season. And then beyond that, I mean, you're looking at like Imanaga, who did not repeat his success from 2024. And then in the bullpen, you know, Palencia is a flamethrower. This guy is gas.
I believe he's
But
on the IL right now, though.
well, at that point, then who are you even looking at as a leverage guy for them? It's not exactly a incredibly effective bullpen. And there's some names here, I can see based on the
Sorry,
baseball reference page.
Palencia is back.
So he is back. So I mean, there's your like that's your flamethrower. That's your guy.
Yeah.
But beyond him, that's a bullpen of a lot of dudes that don't strike that many guys out for a bullpen.
Some Canadian content. Michael Soroka back in the bullpen with the Cubs. He might be pitching in some big spots.
Yeah, I mean, there's your deadline pickup right there to try to fix the rotation, and did
Well,
not fix the rotation.
the injury obviously didn't help that. But speaking of some CanCon, I would imagine going game one for the Padres is Nick Pivetta, who like just what a season that he had, man. He like for him to emerge as the Padres ace, incredible stuff. Like he was 13-5, 181 innings, 2.87 ERA. I was kind of looking this up the other day, but I think he was the first Canadian starting pitcher over 30 to have a 5-win season since Fergie Jenkins.
This is probably your game one starter in February for the WBC.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Jonah Tong has the world's greatest offseason. No, I mean that'll be fun to keep an eye on him for sure. The CanCon there, I mean, Owen Casey probably isn't going to be involved in that series, but you never know.
Also on the
Um,
IL. So
well, then he definitely won't be involved in that
he might
series.
be. He'll be eligible to be back, but I would imagine that they are probably gonna go elsewhere given how, small his
Yeah,
sample size was.
you figure that's the case. Nevertheless, I mean, I do think it's safe to say that Nick Pivetta will definitely play a factor. Is he the best pitcher in that series? He might be.
Well, obviously Cease and King are both really good, and they'll be the other two guys that the Padres have. But yeah, I think he probably probably was the best performing pitcher this year out of the guys. Well, Boyd is in that conversation as well, but Pivetta is in there as well. I think one thing that's kind of interesting with Pivetta, obviously, like very fly ball heavy pitcher. And, the Padres are going to be on the road at notably windy Wrigley Field.
Hmm.
So could the home run ball kind of play a role in those starts? Could definitely see it.
Could be something to keep an eye on there. Uh, I think just on the whole, though, I think that'll also be just a fun series. I think there's a lot of potential for just like fireworks there. Not even
Yeah.
like going at each other, but just it's just two ball clubs I think that are just a
I
lot
mean,
of talent, a lot of stars. Should be fun.
you think about the Padres like playoff run last year, and like the Tatis stuff is always so exciting. Machado's had a really nice year. Bogarts is back. Jackson Merrill's in the mix. Like just a really kind of fun team there, and is always interesting when they play for sure. Which
Yeah.
is a huge change for Padres baseball over the past
Do you
few
have
years.
exactly right? Do you have someone in that series that you've kind of like circled as a bit of an X factor there? I mean, to me, it's got to be PCA, right?
I was gonna say Tucker, but I mean, I feel like that's like kind of obvious because it's Kyle Tucker, but he's like just back from the ankle injury. So how he's able to kind of perform and is he a little bit more of like a decoy in the middle of the Cubs lineup? But PCA is a really good one too. Like he's been kind of down in the second half, but like you talk about a guy who like has the potential to impact a game in so many different ways. He's definitely right there in the mix, like as one of the more electric dudes in baseball.
Yeah, like you figure that obviously, like you said, the second half was so bad. I don't have another word for it. But if he gets back to his first half form, that was literally an MVP candidate for an
Yeah.
extended stretch of the year.
He was right there with Shohei.
Like you're talking about a, top three center fielder in baseball at his best, maybe a top
Yeah.
two. That's a guy that if he finds the magic, not the fountain of youth, but whatever the equivalent is for guys that had a terrible second half, um, that's a guy that's going to be a really important piece of the Cubs if they're going to do anything in the postseason.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move on to the Dodgers and Reds because it's going to be like game one there is going to be, like if you're looking for kind of a high stakes pitching matchup, the Hunter Green against the Dodgers is going to be pretty crazy. Like, I mean, obviously you look at the Reds and the offense isn't there. They played like okay in the second half. Like they finished with 83 wins, so it's not, like this team kind of did a Guardians to make the playoffs. They kind of just were like around 500 and took advantage of the Metsing. So
Metzing.
yeah, hate that that's a verb again. But they're going to be going up against this loaded Dodgers team, and it sounds like Blake Snell's going to start game one, which the strategy there is probably you want to save like game two is going to be so important in this series, regardless of what happens in game one. If you want to talk about understatements of the podcast, but Hunter Green has a chance. He's so good, and he would be more than able of shutting down this Dodgers lineup. So if the Dodgers lose game one, I mean the Reds formula is going to be Green absolutely dominates, and then you hopefully find a way with Andrew Abbott or Nick Lodolo.
It's going to be Green. There's no second name in there. Spawn saying pray for rain. It's Green and pray for rain. It's gonna be it's gonna be a little dicey outside of him.
It's
Um,
Green, and please, Ellie De La Cruz, be the superstar that you are.
Pretty much. Like this could be a real coming out party for him.
Yeah, first postseason for him.
If
Yeah,
there's anybody that is gonna, has the toolkit to really blow the doors off. You want to talk about a guy that could really flourish in a small sample size under the lights. It's EDLC.
yeah, he's pretty electric, but credit to you on our preseason podcast where you predicted the Reds were going to make the postseason.
Did I have him in the
You
postseason?
did because you had Terry as your manager of the year and Ellie as your MVP.
Well, one of those is okay. The other one less so.
I mean, this is we're like kind of off the tracks here, but do you think Francona wins manager of the year in the NL, or is it Pat Murphy again?
Yeah, like it's probably Pat Murphy. I mean, the Brewers were not supposed to be this good. It's probably Pat Murphy. We'll have our I mean we'll have our birdies to come in the next couple of weeks, and we'll probably have some predictions in terms of who wins around the league. But yeah, I think Murphy's probably a safe bet. But Tito will
Yeah,
get some love.
yeah, for sure. On the Dodger side of things, I mean, obviously, they're trying to run it back. Like it's been a good season for them. Like obviously you win the NL West again. They win 93 games, but kind of not the world beating season that I think anybody really expected from them. Obviously Shohei was great, Mookie not so much, and Freddie, kind of was pretty consistent, but not the best Freddie season we've seen. And then they've just kind of dealt with injuries up and down again. Their bullpen has been really bad. Tanner Scott has completely imploded this year. Roki Sasaki is looking like one of the more reliable bullpen arms that they have going here. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they kind of string it together and how they can keep going. I think a Dodgers Phillies NLDS is really intriguing.
Yeah, it's going to be absolute cinema when Roki Sasaki gives up a walk-off bomb to Miles Straw for the Jays to win the World Series, you know?
If we could
In
fast forward to a Game 7 Dodgers Blue Jays World Series, and obviously Game 7 would be in Toronto, so Miles Straw, bases loaded, Blue Jays down by one against Roki Sasaki, like, come on, we got it. We got to have that.
absolute cinema.
Yeah.
Absolute cinema.
I mean, we can like we'll have some other episodes and stuff, but let's just rip off some quick picks. We haven't done a ton of picks this season, so four wild card series. Give me your winner, give me how many games it's in, and give me one player that stands out and makes a difference.
All right, sure thing. We're going on the spot here, so you're gonna
Yeah,
have to
we are.
forgive
We
me here,
can
but
we can we'll go back and forth, so
we'll
you'll
go
have some
back.
time to think about your other ones.
All right.
Let's
Well,
start let's start with the Dodgers and Reds since we're
all
right
right,
here.
let's leave with that. I do think that it is going to be the Dodgers, presumably, but I still, at that, believe that Hunter Green, as we said, is going to be the guy in that series because if they win game one, then all bets, I think, are off. I do think it probably is Dodgers in three. I do think that Green will have the juice to maybe steal one, but it's just so much to ask of anybody else to stop the Los Angeles Dodgers.
All right, and who's your Dodger that kind of does the thing?
Does the thing. Is it too easy to pick Shohei Ohtani? If we're not picking Shohei Ohtani, I think to me you're probably looking at maybe even a Mookie Betts. You know, he didn't obviously have the typical Mookie Betts year, but he did turn around, as the season progressed. Kind of came on a little bit after a really, really tough couple months there. I think he's a guy that has done this before and will almost certainly be just fine come October.
I will go Dodgers in two. I say they survive Hunter Green and Blake Snell, pitches well, and they got Yamamoto presumably lined up for game two. And so for the offensive side, um, since I had a little bit more time than you in preparing this, it is cheating a little bit, but I'm gonna say Andy Paz is my Dodgers pick to click because in his career against Hunter Green, he is 3 for 5 with 3 home runs.
It's a pretty sensible pick. Makes a lot of sense.
I
Let's
mean,
uh, let's move to the other NL one because now
yeah.
I've had my chance
Yeah.
to do a little bit of research here. I like the Cubbies. I do think that the Cubbies offensively are legit. If anyone has the pitching staff, in theory, not named the Los Angeles Dodgers, the 1, 2, 3 of Pivetta, Cease, King is probably capable of handling the Cubs. But to me, Michael Busch had such an enormous breakout year. And he's another guy that I think is worth kind of underlining as a keep an eye out for him this postseason. Obviously, the prospect pedigree was there for years and years and years with the Dodgers, and they finally deal him away, and he finally gets a chance to play significant, time, and breaks out to the tune of an 871 OPS and 34 bombs and 90 ribbies, and just becomes a heartbeat of a really, really good Cubs team. To me, I think that the Cubs offense will be too much for the Padres to contain. And I think that the Padres, outside of their big guns, don't quite have the juice, especially in, the postseason is all about dingers. And the Cubs might just be one of the best, if not the best, at doing exactly that. I think I like the idea of the Cubs in two, thanks in
Ooh.
large part to Michael Busch.
All right, that's a fun one. Obviously, a good series. I'm gonna go Padres in three, and I think the Padres bullpen is the difference maker. Not any individual, but the group of Robert Suarez, Mason Miller, Adrian Morejon, Jeremiah Estrada, like just kind of the 5 or 6 guys that they got back there that are really excellent. I think they are going to be very important in the series, and that is going to kind of be the difference maker compared to the Cubs group back there of maybe some more unheralded guys.
Yeah, that's sensible. That makes sense. Again, they went out and traded a lot for Mason Miller, And if the bullpen wasn't the deciding factor at some point this postseason for the Padres, they would probably be quite displeased.
All right, Guardians Tigers.
I mean, is it too easy to say J Ram is going to be the guy there? It probably is. And yet, I'm not exactly sure who else is even in that category. It's either Scooble or it's J Ram. And based on who you think is going to win that series, is basically, I think, who you pick as the X factor. I
Yeah.
think that the way that the season ended with the Tigers bleh, and the Guardians obviously rocketing up the standings, I think that J Ram presumably leads them back to the NLDS once again this upcoming week, and it'll probably be in 3 games.
Do you remember the Rays Guardians series from the 2022 postseason?
You'll have to jog my memory here.
So it was the wild card between the Guardians and the Rays, and obviously the Guardians end up winning that in 2 games. But the three, so they played 2 games, and there was 4 runs scored.
Yes, I do
Um,
remember
and
this.
it was the who was it that hit it was the guy with the SpongeBob SquarePants walk-up
Yes.
song
Oh, it
who hit the
was. And he's
walk-off
not
in
even in
game
baseball
two.
anymore.
What was his name?
Oh,
Oscar Gonzalez.
there
Oscar
you go.
Gonzalez.
There you go.
And obviously that goes 15 innings with like nobody scoring at all. This is the type of series that I think we're in for here, where pitching kind of rules and the offenses kind of struggle. Maybe outside of Jose Ramirez, who um thinking he might be walking a couple times as
If
things go on.
if the networks could start this game at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think they probably would.
I think it's kind of a toss up. Obviously, I think the Scooble thing is such a trump card for the Tigers, but I'm gonna say Guardians in 3. I think the depth in their rotation will help a little bit more. And hey, how about annual? Let's make it an annual tradition. Big Christmas. John Kenzie Noel comes up big for the Guardians.
There you go. I like that pick. I like that pick.
All right, and
Should we?
finally, who are the Blue Jays going to be playing?
I was waiting for you to ask me that. Um, that series is going to be a slugfest. That's going to be probably the most compelling of all 4 series. I don't think that's really, Yankees Red Sox is a rivalry that spans eras, and we've seen it in a wild card game once before. We're seeing it now in a wild card series. Uh, Two teams that are fascinating in so many ways, and I don't think that there's a universe that the Red Sox win a single game, to be honest. I
Wow,
think that
wow.
I think that the Garrett Crochet thing will be a factor, but I think that it's a lot to ask a lefty like Crochet to stop Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. And I think that
Postseason Giancarlo Stanton too.
that's the other point too. I think that this is probably going to be the Yankees in 2 pretty comfortably. Now, as for the Yankees and the Blue Jays, that'll be a different discussion, but I don't think the Red Sox can hang the way that the Blue Jays should be able to hang with the Yankees.
Yeah, I'll go Yankees in 3. I th- like I the Crochet is tough to beat, but you know who else is tough to beat? Max Fried. I think that he kind of falls under the radar when it comes to like the American League pitcher discussion, and obviously he kind of had that stretch where he struggled a little bit, but I think he's been really good this year. He's been better as of late too. So I'm not going to pick him as like my difference maker, but I think good chance that him and Crochet are going toe to toe in that opener. And I mean, if you're looking for somebody to kind of make a difference, I think Ben Rice down the stretch has been really good, and I'm sure that he's probably got a couple more big swings in him.
That'll be a slugfest. That'll absolutely be a slugfest.
100%. Before we go, I mean, I'd mentioned this to you before we start recording, but now that the regular season 162 games have come and gone, just to do a little bit of a check-in, jumping back from the postseason to the Blue Jays and their clinching. I mean, end of season numbers for the Jays. You look at George Springer obviously having a 5-win season, absolutely incredible. Just kind of looking at some of the statistical accomplishments by this team this year, 4 home run guys. Springer leads the way with 32. Bo was obviously well on his way to a hits title before he gets hurt. I mean, any specific numbers that you are kind of drawn by just looking at the group of the end of year ones?
The Springer stuff obviously goes without saying. That is a season that I don't know if we'll ever see again. The Dalton Varsho stuff is super fascinating too. This is a guy that missed so much time this year and still pops 20 bombs. That to me is a guy that, if healthy, is like a 7-win player. An understated part of how important and how good this Blue Jays team was. Tyler Heineman deserves some love. Obviously, rode the BABIP train quite a bit, but for a defensively strong backup catcher to put together an OPS of 777, I've got here on the year. I don't know if that's up to date. I think it is. It is. That's some really incredible stuff too. I think he deserves a lot of love as well for his role throughout the year with this team.
Eric Lauer, pitching side, 3.21 ERA, 9 wins, 2 losses, 103 innings, 27 appearances, 15 starts, so 12 out of the pen.
Don't
Um,
undersell my boy. That's a 3.18 ERA. Thank you very much. That's
oh, I didn't
again
have it updated to today. My
exactly.
bad. My bad. 318. You're
Don't don't
correct.
don't don't shortchange my lefty goat
You're
like that,
you're correct. He was the third most valuable Blue Jays pitcher this year.
which is a
Um,
crazy sentence.
what a season for Eric Lauer. Like if you're talking about like unsung heroes on this team, I mean obviously Lucas is in that discussion. Um, Miles Straw's in that discussion. Davis Schneider probably in there as well. Like Brendan Little as well. I know that the struggles in the
Tommy
second half.
Nance is in that
Tommy Nance.
discussion.
But I honestly, if I had to pick one, it's probably Eric Lauer.
I think so too. I think, I give obviously probably Eric Lauer the nod there. Braden Fisher's another guy, unsung
Yeah.
hero, that I think really defined this Blue Jays team in a lot of ways. That is a guy that has, they've got about 6 guys that I right now have in my circle of trust, which is crazy because of the way the circle of trust, or if you'll allow me, the circle of trust to basically how that played out over the course of, 162 odd games.
How about the team having, let's see, what is it here? 17 guys worth one F4 or more.
It speaks to the makeup of the team. I don't think anything speaks to the makeup of the team like that. 17 dudes with at least one win above replacement. I'm not sure if that leads baseball, and you'd have to give me a minute to do the research there, but it's pretty safe to assume that it is
It's probably
probably
them and the Brewers, I would imagine.
it's probably top 3, maybe top 5. But this is a team that everybody, as we said earlier in the episode, everybody contributed to this season.
Yeah, just filtering through the numbers, obviously there's so many to look through. I mean, Nance with a sub 2 ERA doesn't allow a home run all season in 31 innings. Like, man, he kind of has earned like some big spots, which I certainly wasn't expecting from Tommy Nance. I think he was a guy that, yeah, they DFA'd him to begin the year, right? So for him to kind of come out and give you that type of production, you mentioned Fisher. We talked about Fluharty earlier. Even I think when you look at like some of the other guys who played for this team this year, right? Like Paxton Schultz is kind of in that conversation. Like he had that big outing against the Mariners. Yariel is really interesting to me, like 'cause he's kind of had some major struggles here, but like through the summer, he was unstoppable, like a guaranteed zero almost every time out. And then, you want to talk about like the exact same thing, but on the offensive side of things, just talking Davis Schneider ending up with 11 home runs on the year. Addison Barger, doesn't start the year on the opening day roster, and he ends up playing 135 games, hitting 21 homers. Obviously, the 107 WRC plus isn't where it was kind of at the height of the season, but just what an overall season from so many guys.
And then even on top of those guys, Ernie Clement and Nathan Lucas, I think
Yeah,
also deserving in that same category of guys that pitched in and contributed that nobody could have possibly expected anything like this to begin the season.
Ernie Clement, give him the utility Gold Glove. He deserves deserves that for
Well,
all the work
well
he did this
earned,
season.
well
Yes.
earned, well
Yes.
earned. And what a player he's turned into.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Chris Black had the thread today and he was
Just
right
ask
that
Chris Black.
he was right in the one tweet though where he said that the value that he provided over the last couple of years is worth like a $50 million contract on the open market, which is,
Exactly.
could you imagine Ernie Clement, man, 50 million bucks. That's the type of value that he's given the Blue Jays. So,
Enormous.
um,
Enormous.
What a season as we sit here today. The AL East champion Toronto Blue Jays for the first time since 2015. Jory, I will give you the final thought before I read off this close and we head into what is essentially a bye week.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this has been an incredible season. I think for us, the Bird's Eye View podcast, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that listened. This has been an incredible year of growth for us. We started the year, and just to give you maybe a little bit of kind of a look behind the scenes, we checked the view counts and we're seeing, 20 views. And that was a good video for us. And we've had, I believe, 4 videos now across 1,000 views. It's been nothing short of a privilege. This has been a ton of fun, and we're not done yet.
We are not done yet. Lots of baseball left to play. We have lots more kind of planned as we proceed through the off season, or not through the off season, through the postseason. Let's not write it off yet. And yeah, hopefully you stick with us along the way. Jory, thank you to you for all your hard work this year and putting this all together. It is always a joy to hop on the Zooms and chat a little bit of baseball. So, what a season, more to come. And that is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View pod. If you're listening along on the audio provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jory is at Jori Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BED_pod. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy the wild card season.